Hi everyone. Today's podcast on Small and Gutsy is what I'm entitling the Unexpected Podcast. I'm actually going to call it Megan Witt Saved My Life. She doesn't know that I'm doing that part of it. I am here on podcast 61 of Small and Gutsy to remind you that no matter how small or insignificant something may be, if it means something to you, then it is big and you can be gutsy about it. The month of October is Breast Cancer Awareness Month. And again, call it circumstances, luck, good or bad, serendipity, whatever you want to call it. I just got diagnosed with breast cancer. It is even hard for me to say those words. And I am alive and currently in treatment, not because my doctor recommended any additional tests for me, but my friend Megan Witt, sitting next to me today, told me to get an ultrasound when they were just watching a mammogram that they believed was benign. 8 months ago, I could have been diagnosed had I known that. Megan and I only talked about this past summer when I was ready to do my 6-month follow-up. And she said, please get an ultrasound. And I am so grateful to her that I listened. She has her own story, which she will share in a moment. Katie Couric, the well-known journalist, interviewer, writer, and celebrated personality, had this experience in July and is now making it her mission, as she did once before as a result of her first husband's death from colon cancer, to remind us all to take care and be advocates in our own health care. Like Katie, who was, I think, a very was consistent about her own health care. She had missed one mammogram. She always got mammograms and ultrasounds, which I didn't even know I should. I was absolutely on top of my health care. I had regular colonoscopies. I had regular mammograms, pap smears, everything. Watched my blood sugar, my cholesterol, all of that. Screening and preventative care are the most important aspects of catching disease early. But what's so challenging is, what if you don't know? What if you don't know about a particular test or screening that is pertinent to you? In my case, and in Megan's case, and in Katie's case, when you have dense breasts, ultrasound on top of mammogram is really the way to go. We are here to share our stories and provide resources for you. So if you need a resource, we want you to advocate for yourself. Tell every woman and man who knows a woman you know, so that you can get treatment early. The earlier the treatment, the better the prognosis. And we will wish you a happy outcome, as both Megan and I hope to have. Welcome to Small and Gutsy, our podcast featuring nonprofits and social impact organizations under $10 million. My name is Dr. Laura Witkoff, and I'm excited and proud to be your host. We hope you'll love the stories as much as we do, and perhaps you will find needed services, a job, volunteer, invest in, or donate. And for all of you followers, and thank you for following, of Small and Gutsy, we've just applied to become a nonprofit ourselves. We are thrilled to move in this direction, enabling us to continue to meet our vision of interviewing as many smaller nonprofits and social impact organizations as we can. I decided to ask Megan if she would join me today because my feeling is that we hope to have a social impact, even though Megan and I are not organizations around breast cancer awareness, but since it is Breast Cancer Awareness Month, and we have both wrestled with this, she is still in treatment. I am about to have surgery and treatment, that we feel that this is a message that just has to get out there and is really part of the mission of Small and Gutsy, to help bring visibility to an area that is unknown to many, many women. So that's really why we're doing this. So please do pass along any valuable information you hear today to others, and send me the name of any organization you like featured at lwitkoff@gmail.com. That's 2 T's and 2 F's. My guest today, if you haven't already guessed, is my dear friend Megan Witt. We have only been friends for a few years and bonded quickly while she and her then business partner were taking photos at the local farmers market, and my husband Mark and I thought it would be fun to take pictures of us and our dogs, Max and Molly. And the friendship was sealed. Little did I realize that more than that would be sealed as we moved along in our respective lives. Megan is smart, witty, super fun, has a million friends, and I'm truly not exaggerating. She does have a million friends. She's a great friend and is deeply good to her core, full of wisdom. She researches everything that is important to her and important to others. She's interested in what's current and cool, and she's one of those cool friends who just knows how not to overdo it. And she makes the best charcuterie, appetizer cheese, nut, dried fruit boards of anyone I know. I'd like to think I do a reasonably good job, but I'm giving the trophy to Megan. And Megan, of course, deserves the trophy for something much more important. She truly saved my life. So Megan, I want to have a conversation with you, and we are going to have a conversation with each other. We're each going to tell our stories and hope that we can share our experience to really help you find a way to advocate for yourself, share with a friend, tell as many people as you know. We know Katie Couric is way better known than we are, but we want to do our part and support Katie in this effort. Of course, we can't take responsibility outside of our own vetting of the information we shared today, and of course, it's very personal to us. So we encourage you to do your own due diligence and research as much as you can. Katie Couric is a great resource. She did an entire podcast on her Next Question with Katie Couric, relaying her experience, and she is posting constantly during Breast Cancer Awareness Month on all kinds of issues around breast cancer, and it is really a great read and has tons of resources. So please take advantage of what she has available. We're also going to post that on our social media as well. We just want to help spread the word. Please share this information and the podcast, if you like, to everyone you know. We all know women, and we should celebrate them by sharing important preventative and diagnostic information that can save their lives. It will save their lives, as Megan pushing me to get an ultrasound saved mine. Megan and I want to have a conversation with each other in hopes that what we experienced will inspire you to advocate for your own health care, regardless of what your doctor says. So here goes. So I'm welcoming my wonderful friend Megan, who's here. And my first question to really ask you, Megan, is tell us your story. You're already through a big part of your cancer journey. I'm just starting mine, which I shared with everybody. I didn't share the details of mine, but I'm going to piggyback on yours.
Okay. So in January of 2019, I went and had a mammogram, my scheduled mammogram, and there was a suspicious area, which they said was fine.
Right. It's almost exactly what happened to me.
They didn't do an ultrasound. But I didn't know about ultrasounds at that point, but I have very dense breasts. I knew that. So in April, I noticed the lump had definitely changed. What I had felt was the suspicious area, and I...
Did you feel it yourself?
Yes.
Oh, interesting, because
Yes.
I never felt anything.
I'm big on during the shower, like...
Me too,
Yeah,
but I felt
we
nothing.
didn't. Well, not unusual.
And neither
You
did
don't
my
always
doctor.
get to.
Yeah, true.
Yeah.
That's
I mean,
true.
it's just, you can't always
Yeah.
count on that, which is why you have to have ultrasounds. I actually met this woman she's in Los Angeles in the Brentwood area, and she has a private ultrasound business. And I'd met her, and she was telling me the significance of dense breasts and ultrasounds and how important it was. And I was like, wow, it just really stuck with me.
So this never came through your healthcare provider,
No.
but really through a personal encounter.
Well, the person educated me about the necessity of ultrasounds with dense breasts, and that's her business. So anyway, then my lump had changed, and I thought, this is a problem. This is not. I'm not going to wait. The other thing is, getting appointments is difficult now, as we all know, and it was then. And so I called my internist, and she said, well, why don't you come in and let me look at it? Mm-hmm. And I was like, actually, you know what? I'm confident that this needs to be seen by a surgeon. Mm-hmm. So could you make 3 recommendations for me? And I was able to get in with somebody 2 days later, only because I'm a bulldog.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, but thank God you are.
Thank God.
Mm-hmm.
But so then I went in, and she looked at it. She said, this definitely needs to be screened. And I'd had the mammogram. And I said, so what about this ultrasound? We need to have an ultrasound. And she said, yeah. She said, we probably should have an ultrasound. but I had a full-blown lump at this point. So then I went in and had the ultrasound, and I remember asking that, and then they quickly, told me that it was a problem, and that I then needed to have it biopsied.
Yeah.
So that was, a couple of days later. But I remember saying, could somebody pull up that mammogram from January and tell me why they didn't tell me to get an ultrasound?
Right
and
then and
somebody
there.
needs to tell me why they didn't notice it. Could somebody do that? Well, needless to say, nobody was willing to do that at the hospital or the doctor.
Right.
But fast forward, I then read.
So that was January,
March, and then I had surgery in May.
Wow. Okay.
And I had stage 2 breast cancer, which I then had a lumpectomy. I always think it's sort of fascinating to hear what people's treatments were. So I had a lumpectomy. I had 4 weeks of radiation, and I did not have to go do chemo because it had not gone to my lymph nodes.
Thank God.
So I was really lucky, and I'm on tamoxifen, and will be for 5 years. It's been 3 years.
Right.
So
amazing.
Yeah.
So I love that you're here, and thank you for sharing.
Well, thank you for inviting me.
And thank you for actually spreading the word to me, because I, like Megan, had a similar situation, but I wasn't as much of a bulldog because I didn't know. So for those of you, and I think I advocate for myself usually pretty well, and I think, like Katie Couric, I'm very on top of my health care. And this is what is so scary about this. I never felt anything. I went for a mammogram, and they saw something but said benign, mostly benign. I think it's benign, and didn't even kind of question it. I have dense breasts too. Didn't even know I had dense breasts.
Didn't they tell you to come back in 6 months?
6 months instead of right then and there. And so I thought my doctor would say something to me. He didn't say anything. I talked to some friends, because that's where we go for healthcare advice, actually, mostly our friends. That's why we're doing this podcast. And I had friends who said, oh yeah, don't worry about it. I have dense breasts and it's usually nothing. And it even on my mammogram, it said probable benign. I never felt a thing. So this is in February because of COVID, even a little post-COVID, it took me forever.
February 2022.
Yes, this past February,
yes.
But I was supposed to have one in January, but couldn't even get in.
Right.
So I went to a different radiology in the same larger group. And so they said, don't worry. So I became very good friends with Megan, and we were taking a walk, and I was telling you about this, knowing in my gut or the back of my mind, I'd never had a mammogram that needed any care. I mean, no one had ever told me I had dense breasts, even though it was in my file and right there. I didn't read my medical stuff. All I wanted to ever know is, you're fine, don't worry about it, keep moving forward in life. Silly and blindly maybe, and that's why we have to be advocates for our own health care. Because of you, Megan, and I know you hate when I get so emotional about this, but because of you, I am sitting here today in treatment.
Okay, but so what happened?
Okay,
how did that happen?
You're so funny. So what happened was, you said you need an ultrasound, and I said I don't even know anything about an ultrasound. You said ask your doctor to put a
because you
script.
had a suspicious area and a very dense breast. So why didn't they recommend that?
It's a really good question, because so many of those suspicious areas, I think I understand, are maybe benign, but why not do a very inexpensive, non-intrusive test, which is an ultrasound. It's literally gel on your breast and a machine that is not expensive and not intrusive. And by the way, what annoys me about healthcare insurance companies these days is they don't pay for diagnostics, and that's a whole nother conversation. It's unfair and it's unjust. So my doctor said, I don't think you need one. But I'll go ahead and write it up anyway. And I loved his assistant, and she kind of did what I asked her to do, because then I got very sort of pushy. So I went for my 6-month follow-up. I tried to get one earlier, and they would not see me.
I remember talking to you, and you said, I'm supposed to come back in 6 months. And I said, you make an appointment now. I said, that's not right that they're going to leave you hanging for 6 months.
They wouldn't let me.
And then you said, okay, well, my appointment's soon, whatever. And I'm like, okay, now you have to make sure you get the ultrasound. Okay?
You were so on top of it.
But now,
thank God
I
for
think
you.
it's funny how you got your ultrasound.
Oh yeah, this is kind of sad, and you know. So I went to my mammogram appointment. They would not let me come in before 6 months because the script said 6 months. So 6 months and a day, I was there. So I said, I'm supposed to get an ultrasound, and they said, no, you don't have it. We don't have you scheduled for one. I said, what are you talking about? The script went to you. I know it went from my doctor. Luckily, I keep everything on my phone, thank goodness. And I pulled it up, and they said, well, we never got it. And I said, well, I have it, and I need to get it. And they said, well, we don't think we have time today. And I said, you know what? I'll sit and wait.
Yeah.
And because your voice was in my head, and I thought I'd rather know at this point, because putting it off is going to make me so anxious because of your experience. And thank God that you shared that with me, and that's why we're doing this, because we want every woman to know, and we're going to send this out to everyone to get this information out there. Katie Couric's doing a great job for us, but we feel like there's still people who don't always know who Katie Couric is. Well, they might know who she is. They don't know who Megan and Laura are, but hopefully this will help. And so I'm in the office and I wait and wait, and they go, okay, we'll get you in. And I thought, okay, great. So they take me in for the mammogram and the ultrasound, and right after the ultrasound, not the mammogram.
Sorry to interrupt you, but didn't they also say, and you're going to have to pay $25 for this?
Yes, for any diagnostic. So for the second mammogram, for the second mammogram, I had to pay a couple $100, which a lot of women wouldn't be able to do. For the ultrasound, which is relatively inexpensive, I ended up having to pay $25, and I said, I don't care right now what I need to have some information. And as soon as they did the ultrasound, the radiologist came in and said, you know what, we need to biopsy a section. And my heart just sank. And of course they said, it's probably nothing. Don't worry about it. I think if I ever hear it's probably nothing again, I'm not going to pay attention to it. And so I did the biopsy. I had to wait 2 weeks. I did the biopsy. It came back with invasive lobular carcinoma, which is a very difficult cancer to feel, which is interesting because it wasn't in the duct, it was outside of it. It is invasive, which means it can spread. I'm praying to God it hasn't spread to my lymph nodes, because this could have been handled in February, and now it is October, Breast Cancer Awareness Month. And so I have now gone through all the tests. I did the genetic testing. So I am a candidate who does not have a genetic predisposition to any cancer, including breast cancer, although my grandmother died of breast cancer, but that's not considered a genetic link. But I want you to know, and Katie Couric talks about this, only 15% of breast cancers are genetically linked. I think of all cancers, actually. 85% of all cancers are flukes of your cell system, of within your cells. And the scariest part of this, and I'm embarking, I haven't had my surgery yet, I'll have it on the 20th of this month. You're past it, so you are living proof that you survive. And look, she looks amazing.
And the surgeries, you're going to be fine. It's
right. I am having a lumpectomy because I don't have a predisposition genetically, and also because until they go in, to be quite honest, they're assuming that it's isolated in one section. They're assuming that it has not traversed through the lymph nodes, but if it has, they're always going to they have a test where they put dye in you and see if that lights up, and then if it does, they're going to take some of those out, and then they still do automatically radiation, and hopefully I won't have to have chemo, but they don't know till they go in.
Right. I
have an incredibly competent team, but what I'm so disappointed in, and Megan, you and I have talked a lot about this, is I'm disappointed that, as I love you and I'm so appreciative, but I'm so disappointed that you had to be the one to tell me. Because honestly, even with a second mammogram, they would have been watching this. It might have been a year or so later that I might have felt something finally, and then the lump would have been quite large. It is supposed to be pretty small, but again, they don't know until they actually go in, because they can only see so much. I did have an MRI, so I know I'm okay on the right side right now. They do say that this kind of cancer goes from one breast to the other. However, they don't like to take out tissue that's not infected. They generally don't like to do that unless you have the BRCA gene, which I do not, thank God, do not have. So it's scary. It's scary,
but early detection is key.
It's huge.
Didn't they identify your cancer as hopefully stage 1, they think?
They think, they can't say for sure.
Right.
They thought yours was stage 1 until they got in, and then it was stage 2.
Yes.
There is now the statistic 1 out of 8 women get breast cancer.
Amazing. It's unbelievable.
Yeah, it's frightening. It could be environmental. It's our gene pool. It's like something that goes wacky somewhere. And most likely post radiation, hopefully for me, and medication for you, you will be considered cancer-free in the future.
Right.
And that is the hope and the goal. Mm-hmm. So Megan is an amazing human being.
So is Laura. Mutual Admiration Society.
Mutual admiration.
Yes.
And we wanted to do this podcast, and we may think about doing a series as we go through this process, and Megan continues to stay on medication. I have a couple questions for you. Any adverse reactions to the medication?
Yes. I'm on tamoxifen, which is an AI drug, aroma something inhibitor. So our tumor, since we have the same cancer, weirdly, are estrogen seeking. So they are, they love estrogen. So they have tried to tap down the estrogen in my system with this drug called tamoxifen. Side effects are, drier skin, hair loss, maybe. Actually, but I shouldn't say that. Some people have no side effects. Right. They don't feel it at all. Some people, have a tougher time with it. I think I'm like on the sort of low end of side effects of tamoxifen. You know what? If that's what they have to do, if that's the way you can protect yourself, it's a small price to pay.
It's so worth it. And there are also foods, I think, that actually are supposed to reduce your estrogen. But I would, obviously with medical information today, we want to do the most advanced, use the most advanced knowledge that we can. And
do you know about the estrogen testing, which I've never done? I should, we should probably pursue that. Yeah. So they can literally test the estrogen in your system and see how much is there and whether or not the pill's working or not. And so as far as foods that
you take away the estrogen are supposed to inhibit it.
We can get that tested.
I would love to do that.
Yeah, I would like to. We should do that.
It's interesting how you learn so much from people who've been through this versus certainly the medical community has done an amazing job and has amazing strides in this. And at the same time, gathering information, at least for me in the beginning, was and still is overwhelming because everyone has a way forward. I may be more traditional on the medical side, but I also will look at alternative support to the medical community. Yeah. I won't not do the medical pieces, and I encourage you to think about what works for you best versus taking someone else's advice. You have to do your own due diligence, and everybody's chemistry and body's a little bit different.
Right.
So we want this message to go out to every woman we know and every man we know who knows a woman, right? Because you may have wives, sisters, children.
Too, I think I heard from Katie's thing was it 40% of women have dense breasts?
Yes, there's a huge. No, it's 50. I think it's over 50%.
Okay, so it's pretty high.
So, and she has a podcast that I mentioned in the opening, but it's really worth listening to. Next Question with Katie Couric, and she does a whole series on this and walks you through her experience. She knows how lucky she is. We know how lucky we are. And one thing I want to also point out is from the research, Ashkenazi Jews and African American women have the highest percentage of breast cancer.
Yes.
Whether they have dense breasts or not, I don't know, but I know they have the highest percentage. So I was speaking to a girlfriend of mine because Megan's whole thing is please do a pay it forward, which is why we're doing the podcast. And I said to her, she has a mammogram coming up this week, and I said, insist on getting an ultrasound because again it's an inexpensive test compared to an MRI or even a mammogram, and it gives you a different slice of information that in fact the doctor on Katie's podcast talks about when you do a mammogram, it's like for this type of cancer it's like looking for a snowball in a mound of snow. So it's very hard to detect, and that's why the ultrasound does something different and will show it in a different way. And that's really one of the only ways to detect it.
Speaking of school, again, this woman that does the ultrasounds in Brentwood, it described it to me, and she showed me a picture of a tumor with a mammogram and a tumor with an ultrasound. And a tumor in a mammogram is white. So is all the breast tissue. Really hard to
decipher.
Right. In an ultrasound, the tumor's black and the tissue's white. Like she's like, it's a no-brainer. Like why you wouldn't want to do this.
And why it shouldn't be standardized for every single woman out there.
It needs to be.
If you don't have, dense breasts, maybe it's not such an issue because you'll see something, and it was great that you felt something.
Right.
I felt nothing.
Right. Scary.
Ever. So it was a shock to me to even be in this category when I thought I was pretty low risk, hadn't done the genetic testing. But given that my mother didn't have breast cancer, there was a good likelihood that that genetic gene wouldn't have been passed down to me, but you never know. And so again, these tests are, this particular test is not expensive.
It's non-invasive. It's a no-brainer.
Non-invasive, right.
The other thing I remember was this whole dense breast thing. Like, I remember the doctor telling me I was getting my biopsy, and he's like, "You always have to have an ultrasound." And I said, "Why didn't I get the memo?
Mm-hmm.
I missed the memo,
So
and I'm very in charge of my healthcare. How come nobody told me this until I was 56 years old? Like, how come?" So all of you out there, find out if you have dense breasts or not.
Please do.
Ask,
look at your mammogram, see if it says it on there. And even if you're not sure, ask your provider to get an ultrasound, even as a baseline. Now, Katie Couric was getting ultrasounds and mammograms every single time. She missed her appointment due to COVID for 6 months. Mm-hmm. I had my appointment and wasn't told that I could get an ultrasound, and they wanted me to wait 6 months. And I just feel like there's a level, maybe I should just say, a lack of both awareness and a lack of urgency on the part of many doctors who don't see this as, like you and I feel, is a no-brainer. Mm-hmm. It's just a no-brainer. And the other thing I just want to point out is it is much more cost-effective, this is for everything, to catch something early than far along the path.
It's a larger conversation.
It's a much larger conversation.
Yes.
Yeah, but also what sometimes physicians make a decision, not thinking it's an issue if they assume low risk. So again, anyone with dense breasts, get an ultrasound. For those of you who know my podcast, I always ask these quick and gutsies. Megan doesn't know I'm going to do this, but I'm going to do it, and we're going to do it for both of us, because although Megan is not an organization, we are doing a public service announcement. So I'm going to ask Megan these questions.
Great.
And we may end up with some of the same answers. Who knows? Okay. But I'll answer them too. How's that?
Good.
So what is at the top of your wish list? And it can't be money or funding for breast cancer research. Let's take money out of the equation. Okay. What's at the top of your wish list?
For me personally, or just
you? Either way.
Okay. Finding a cure.
Yeah, finding a cure.
Because right now we have treatments for cancer.
Yeah.
And lots of new treatments and treatments and treatments and treatments.
It's true. And I think I sent it to you today. Someone sent me a New York Times. Was it? No. It was in New York Magazine. There was an article about a potential vaccine for breast cancer.
Amazing.
Wouldn't that be? So it's like HPV. Yeah. There may be something on the horizon. And I'm so glad that women's health in some ways is being taken more seriously because of these events that keep happening.
I think that women are getting louder too.
Thank you. We are.
That's a big part of it. Yeah. And that's why we're doing what we're doing. We need to advocate for ourselves.
Not only advocate for ourselves, but be those bulldogs, be those advocates. And by the way, for ourselves, and in my situation, for each other. Because you really did that for me. You really read me the riot.
I did, because I was like, Laura, I'm not kidding.
Right.
You have to do this.
And I was like, oh, they're telling me 6 months, not a big deal.
You want to believe your doctor. You're like, but my doctor says this.
Right.
I know,
but please do this.
Do it.
And you said if they won't give you one, if you won't get a script, go to the person I know.
Yes.
And I was really grateful for that because I think I would have done that. I hope I would have done that.
I still do. I go once a year. I get an ultrasound once a year. They'll let me have an ultrasound once a year.
Yeah.
And then I go and I get another one.
Every 6 months?
Once a year. So I get 2 ultrasounds a year. Yeah, one I pay for and one is through insurance.
That's great. I might do that too. Because mammogram on my breast isn't going to show anything. So I'll still do it. But on top of it,
They still say, I've spoken really in depth with my doctor about this, like you still have to get a mammogram.
Of course.
And ideally an MRI too.
Yeah, MRI is more expensive and more invasive.
Harder to get, but I figured out how to get it. I got my 3rd MRI this year.
Oh.
They said you only get one. The insurance says you only get 1 MRI post-cancer in your first year. After that, they won't pay for anything.
Wow. So you'll have to
I'll tell you that
later. This is my advocate friend. We're going to start sharing this information. Why not? What you have to do is you have to push. And you have to make a case for it because I've had to do it for other medical issues.
Right.
This is one that you just can't stand still for.
So, it's too common.
Yeah,
I mean, we all know
it's too
somebody
pervasive.
who's had breast
100%.
cancer or is dealing with breast cancer.
Yeah. So my wish, because I have to answer my
Yes,
own
I'm
question
sorry.
too. No,
Okay.
are you kidding? I love yours. Yours is the top wish. Mine is number 2, is that this information gets out there so that there is not one woman I meet who doesn't know about ultrasound.
Right.
And
Right.
the reason I'm saying that is because through this process, I have met women who have been staff at a hospital during my medical care, and I've said, if you have dense breasts, please get an ultrasound. And they look at me literally deer in headlight and have
Amazing.
no idea what I'm talking about. And I have said, look, I am there to tell you, you don't want this happening to you, or if you do, you want it to be stage 0.5 if you have to have a stage. So that's my wish. Okay, question number 2. If you were to think of a song that describes your cancer journey, which is a hard one, I know, what would it be?
Oh my gosh.
I know, sorry.
Something about hope and being positive and grateful. I don't know. What's
Yeah,
that
I
song?
like those lyrics.
Yeah.
There's a lot.
There's something out there.
Yeah, there's a lot of ones that I think we could sort of come up with together as a theme song. One for me is I love Diana Ross anyway, but Ain't No Mountain High
Yeah,
Enough.
perfect. Great.
So we're gonna push that
Good one.
one.
Okay, I'll jump on that.
And then Happy, you know?
Yeah, I love
right?
Outrageous.
It's such a
Who
fun
doesn't love that
dance.
song?
Right, so you sort of have to go, because one of the things that has been challenging for me personally, I don't know if it's really been challenging for you. I think you have a better mindset than I do. I'm fine during the day. I'm fine when I'm working. I'm fine when I do things I love. And then all of a sudden night comes and I have to go to sleep. And I go to sleep and then I wake up with just nightmares. And I don't, I feel like getting your mind in a place of positive forward thinking and doing whatever you need to do, whether it's a song, whether it's a mantra, whether it's a poem you can read, something that makes you feel hopeful. And then having everyone you know, everyone you love, everyone who maybe doesn't know you but will put a good word in, send prayers, good karma, whatever you have to people who you know are struggling.
Okay, and maybe add one more thing to that.
Yeah.
Maybe stay off Google.
Yeah,
I mean, you
know.
can get
It makes
into
you
a
crazy.
really bad
Yeah.
little spiral if you go too far on Google.
I agree.
And I think, like, my doctors have been so great, and they're like, we think the information on that patients find through Google is really old.
Yeah.
And
Yeah, that's a good point.
They're like, there's so many more treatments and more current things that aren't there yet.
Yeah, it's
So
a great
we
idea.
urge you strongly to
love
call
it.
us and to contact us if you have questions, and don't ask Dr. Google.
Yeah, that's really good. You know what? Google's not a doctor. Did not get a medical degree.
Yeah.
Even though it was my friend who told me to get the diagnostic, right? At the same time. And also laughter. You have to have laughter. Megan makes me
my
laugh
gosh.
all the
Well, we
time.
all have to laugh.
So you have to laugh because it really is good medicine, I have to say. And in our social media, we're going to put in resources. Katie Couric has always done a ton of research. She is using the month of October to constantly post. You can get on and sign up for her newsletter, which I did, listen to her podcast because it really walks you through. We just wanted to do an added push. So, Megan, I know you're gutsy. What do you think makes you gutsy?
Believing in myself.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and I love that. In my intro, I talked about trusting yourself, not second guessing, holding on. You can hear the noise out there, but keep it at bay.
Right.
And I feel like you are gutsy that way. And what I also want to say is when I think about, I don't know if I'm as gutsy as you are, but I learn to appreciate and get on the gutsy wagon.
But
And
you're
I'm on-
gutsy, and so what makes you
yeah.
gutsy?
So what makes me gutsy?
Miss interviewer,
yeah.
now the interviewee.
Right. I think what makes me gutsy is not being afraid to put our names out there. Some of you who are listening to this don't know that Megan and I are dealing with breast cancer. And this may be the first time you're hearing this. And it's still, and I'll get emotional.
Yeah, that's okay.
It's
That's
still
okay.
hard for me to say the words, I have breast cancer. Nobody plans for this. Nobody wants it. Nobody did anything to deserve this. And,
So true.
And so we have to hold on to each other as women to know that our bodies are important and what we choose to do with them in order to be healthy is also our decision. But we need the help, the guidance, and the know-how and the knowledge and the access to be able to do it. So I think that's what makes me gutsy, is putting it out there.
I think, and you look at this podcast you created, what a great answer.
What is something that insiders who know about breast cancer, but maybe outsiders, but really insiders don't really know about our situation? It's similar and it's different at the same time. So what is something that you feel an outsider, and certainly maybe even an insider, doesn't know?
Oh,
I know that's a tough one.
That's a hard one. I guess I'll answer the question in a roundabout way, and that is that there's a lot that they don't know because this is mine.
Yes.
And I don't need to get anybody's approval or input unless I want to.
Yeah, that's really good.
So, I'm happy to help anybody. Like, you know me, I would talk anybody to the blue in the face about it. But it's mine.
Yeah, it's yours.
Yeah.
I think that's a beautiful thing, and I feel similarly, and I'm newer in this journey, and I know that I'm going to face a lot of things where I'll call you being a little tearful or, tired or whatever I am. And I feel similarly to you is that every body, no matter how similar, is different.
Right.
And everybody's set of cells and everybody's defense mechanism and everybody's way of coping is entirely different.
Yes.
And you have to embrace that.
Yes, that's so true.
And it's hard when you're with people who are like, you're going to be fine, when you don't feel fine because something's in your body that shouldn't be there. Or you have to take something out of your body through medication that actually hinders something naturally that you should have, right? Estrogen is part of our makeup, and there are things that you won't have as a result.
Right. Things will change.
And so people can say, you look beautiful, you look great. Yeah. You have to feel that and feel okay.
I say, thank you very much. And this is my least favorite thing that people say to me.
Good. I'm glad you're telling me.
You're so strong. Nobody's stronger than you.
Yeah.
And I'm like, oh, thank you so much. If only you knew.
Right. I fall apart on a regular basis.
Yeah.
You know?
Glad you think that.
Right.
But that's a terrible thing to say to somebody.
I think that's so true. I probably said that to you because I admire you.
Everyone in the world has.
So now I won't say that, but I'm going to say no. Gosh. But what I want to say to you is every bit of the way that you present yourself is a model for me. Whether you mean it to be or not, doesn't matter.
Laura needs to find some more friends.
So, yes. Clearly I do. It's my only one. But I do feel like what you're saying is so important because when somebody is strong or they are approaching, like someone like that, people say to me, you have such a positive attitude. And I'm thinking,
exactly.
I know, but I'm thinking, just talk to my husband. He thinks I have the worst attitude in the world. So,
like in the moment.
In the moment, right now, in this moment,
I
we're having fun. We're doing great. We're hanging out together. We're doing a podcast. But the truth is, I get in the shower, I look in the mirror, and I cry like everybody else does and say, why did this happen to me?
Right.
I'm a good person, and I eat pretty well, and I watch things that I'm supposed to watch, and I don't smoke, and I don't do this, whatever. It has no bearing on it.
Right.
And so you have to take that out of the equation. And somebody also said to me, you will appreciate a piece of cancer. It's hard for me to swallow that pill.
Right.
And at the same time, what it has done for me is created moments of gratitude, like real
That's
gratitude.
Beautifully said. Really beautifully said.
Yeah.
You have a wonderful partner.
I do.
Who's taking
very
care
lucky.
of you. You have great medical care.
Yeah.
Like,
very
aren't you
lucky.
lucky that we have access to that?
Mm-hmm.
Your children are totally supportive and wonderful.
For sure.
A lot of good things.
Yeah, there's a lot to be grateful for, but holding on to that is sometimes a challenge. And so if I can find moments where I really hold on to those, then I feel like I've done my part for that day.
That's awesome.
That's all I can do.
That's great.
Right? And friends help. Friends and loved ones really help. Out of the blue, when you get a card or a text or someone says, I'm just thinking of you.
So nice.
It makes just
So
such
nice.
a difference. So the last question I always ask, which is kind of silly for us in a way, if you could get one influencer or celebrity to talk about this issue, who would it be? Katie Couric. Yes, Katie Couric. She's doing it. And, you know, her life, as glamorous and wonderful and amazing as it is, she had to raise 2 kids without a husband.
Right, who died of cancer.
Who died of colon cancer. She put it on the map so everyone knew how serious it was.
Yeah.
Her sister died of cancer, I believe, and she is making herself incredibly vulnerable, both by her medical. You can watch videos where she goes through the medical process, and where her
and will we
podcast-
ever forget her doing the colonoscopy on the Today Show?
Right, which she talks about.
You know, pretty earth-shattering at
Very,
the time.
yeah.
But God love her.
Right.
She even knows the percent. Like she increased the number of colonoscopies exponentially by doing that.
Which is pretty
is
darn
what she
amazing.
wanted, yeah.
And she even made, I think, Jimmy Kimmel. Did she make Jimmy Kimmel do it? I think so.
Did he? I don't know.
I think
I don't
so.
know.
I'm not sure.
God, awful.
But, you know, I never asked you this follow-up question, which I will, because in listening to her podcast, something really occurred to me. And I hope you don't mind. I'm going to ask you this question. You'll see. Okay, what's the question? Because I'll share my experience. When you had to tell your 4 boys, and she has 4 amazing, stupendous boys, what was that like?
Okay, I'll have a surprising answer for you.
Okay.
One thing that I learned with cancer is that it's really all about other people's experiences, and me managing that is a great distraction and a reality. Like, so telling my kids, they each had a different reaction, and of course they love me and care about me, but really they're devastated and scared. And one of my sons even said, you know, I think Mom's kind of making a big deal about this.
Because it was a defense
Because
mechanism
it's
for
just
him.
totally.
He had to be
now,
like,
the
I
brother
can't.
that he told that to wanted to punch him.
I bet. I won't ask who.
No,
I'm
but
teasing.
I think that for me,
Right, it's a great point you're making. Everyone has their own.
every single person that I
reaction.
tell,
Right.
I have to consider how
Right.
it lands for them.
Yeah, for
and
sure.
how I can make that easier for them.
Okay, I agree to a point. Okay, if your kids, yes, make it easier
Yes,
for
my
them,
family.
and they're all different. I think other people either step up and surprise you in beautiful ways,
Totally.
or surprise you in ways that they just can't do it. And people can only do what they can do. That's what I've
And you
learned.
have to understand and
You
accept
just go,
Yeah.
that's who they are, has nothing to
right.
do with me.
Right.
I have 5 children, and it was a range also from being really upset. Particularly one of my boys was really, really, really upset. He knew I was having a biopsy because he happened to be visiting, so I sort of had to tell him in a way, and I was hoping to wait to give them good news. But I called each one individually, and because I couldn't be there to see them, and they were, my message was, I'm going to be fine, even though I didn't know at the time. I'm going to be okay. I'm going to go through the process. They believe I've caught it early. All of those positive messages. One of my sons calls me daily, pretty much, just
Yeah.
to check in.
Makes them feel better.
It makes them feel better. I have to
Right.
remember that. And half the
Yeah.
time we talk about everything else but cancer,
He just
which
wants
is
to know you're okay.
He wants to know I'm here. And I think in some ways, we as mothers, and fathers are important too, don't get me wrong, but we as mothers sometimes have had to show strength in a certain way, and so they expect it. And so my kids, a couple of them said, you're going to beat this because you're so strong. And I'm thinking that's a big responsibility when all I feel like doing is crying.
Because you've taught them that. Like, you've been such a strong role model
Yeah, I
to
guess
them
so.
for their entire lives. I mean,
Yeah.
without going into detail.
Right.
And
you too.
And me too.
Yeah.
And I think that
Yeah.
it's extraordinarily hard for them to
Yeah.
see us in a weakened state.
I think that's true.
Yeah.
And I remember thinking about my own mother, which is really interesting. Unrelated to this, when we meet for travel together or see each other, I would expect her to walk as far as I could walk, do all this stuff.
Yeah.
And as she was getting older, I was not intolerant, but it was so hard for me to digest because she was always so on the go,
Right.
and so I think my kids see me as someone who hasn't faltered in a way,
Right.
regardless of what I've had to deal with, and I've had to deal with a lot,
Yeah.
as you know. And so, yeah, interesting. But I think your kids probably think of you the same way.
I think very similarly, but both of our families. I totally agree with that.
Yeah. So our final message to you is, do any diagnostic you think you need to do. Hold on to what you believe is right. Push your healthcare provider to get you what you need. Insurance should pay for this. They don't always do. But if you have dense breasts, get an ultrasound. Continue doing your mammogram.
Don't do it in lieu
don't
of.
stop doing
Right.
that. But absolutely go forward with the ultrasound, because you will get more information, you will get peace of mind, or you will have an action plan. And now I feel like sometimes this cancer is run of the mill. We'd like to eliminate it completely. And the earlier you detect something, the better off you are. Thank you for listening. Share this with everyone you know. And Megan, I just want to thank you for, this is my podcast, and you put yourself out in a really vulnerable way. You didn't have to. There may be people who don't
So
know
happy
your
to
story.
do that for you and to help other people.
Help other people.
Yeah.
That's what it's about. Thank you.
You're
You're
welcome.
the best.
You're the best too.
Love you.
Okay, love you too.
I want to thank my partners in this endeavor, my co-producer, sound engineer, and composer, Pavel Franson, my graphic designer, Nate Addy, my amazing guest, Megan Witt, for coming on the show to help me spread the word, my husband, Mark Witkoff, who stands by my side at every turn and is the biggest Small and Gutsy fan, who has the best positive attitude, which I honestly wish in times like this that I could truly emulate. His positive attitude moving forward and knowing everything will be okay is a constant source of support for me, even when I fight it and say, you don't know for sure. I really feel that in my heart. And of course, all the folks, friends, and family who have sent prayers from every faith and guided and inspired me. And thank you for listening. I'm Laura Witkoff, and please spread this message to everyone you know. Thanks for listening.